Empire.
Hello and welcome to my podcast. Do me a favor, subscribe to the John Conn Report wherever you get your podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. You can find us there as part of Empire Media. That's AMPIRE. Always much appreciated when you tune in. As a reminder, I'm going to also be doing an update after the Wednesday OTA practice session to get a first look at what we saw from the Commanders on the practice field, quarterback Sam Howell, all that good stuff. But now I'm going to bring in my pal, JP Finlay. Does all sorts of things. JP, here he comes. We're at the owners' meetings, wrapping up the owners' meetings. JP, first of all, tell people where they can find you. It's kind of a lot of places.
Sure. JP Finlay, NBCS on social and the radio show with B Mitch, and watch Channel 4, and of course the Beltway Football Pod. A lot of spots.
A lot of spots. So we're wrapping up the owners' meetings from Minnesota, where there was no vote taken on the Commanders. Not a surprise. We knew that going in. But JP, what are you taking away from the last couple of days? We talked to Jim Irsay, Jerry Jones, we heard from Roger Goodell. What's your takeaway from these meetings with the Commander sale?
It's happening. And now is kind of more just the procedural side of the process than anything else. I mean, this is the NFL, and they're not gonna move something different for even somebody that they want gone like Dan. They're still gonna vet. I think a lot of I don't even think it's fair to call it delays, but I think what is going to take some time is the vetting process with 17 people. And, Mary Jo White's taken 16 months. Like, they're not going to move this stuff that much faster. I do fully expect it. Goodell kind of hinted at it today, and we both kind of heard plenty, without microphones on, that there will be a special session at some point where they'll get everybody together. They'll vote on it. They'll approve it. And, Josh Harris will step to a lectern and be the new owner of the Commanders.
Right. And like Jim Irsay is the one who expressed, I wouldn't say pessimism, but more concern about the structure of the bid. But even he said he's hopeful, and even his tone seemed to be more just working those things out versus can't work them out. It's just a matter of working them out and not going away from the NFL guidelines, and adhering to that because they don't want to set precedent or the other way.
Irsay's kind of been the roller coaster throughout all this, because it was his comments last fall that really magnified everything, that said they might consider voting them out. Now he's like, yeah, we don't want to have to do that. The sale is going to go forward. But certainly if you're kind of measuring Goodell, Jerry, Irsay as the people that have actually talked on the record in this process, and Jerry and Irsay are on the finance committee, so they're, play a bigger role in all this. Irsay definitely had more. It wasn't negativity. It wasn't like skepticism, but he made it seem like there were more layers to this than I think necessarily any of the others did. Jerry used the word, I think he said, outstandingly quality buyers. Jerry seemed to really push forward, and Jerry kind of pushed back on is there trouble here narrative. Jerry didn't want to hear that. He's like, no, this is just the process.
Right. And he made it clear that he thinks that he's like, it's going to happen. And Roger Goodell said it's certainly seems
Roger
like
was way closer to that.
Correct. Whereas with Irsay, he's looking, because Irsay's deeper in those meetings right now. So he's looking at the structure of the deal, the debt load, how much equity is going to be in there, the vetting of the limited partners, because when you have a limited partner, if it's a family, it may count as one limited partner, but you've got to vet all the family members. So like, he's looking at all those details, but I think even he's like, at some point you're going to get to a point where it's like, hey, let's just get this done.
Right. Totally. And I think it's getting there. I don't think I think most fans are pretty aware and have accepted that this is really happening, but for the fans out there that are still freaked out, I don't think you should be.
Right. And this is going to happen. I even talked to some of the Harris group, and for them, it's still a matter of, this isn't a if, it's a when.
Yeah.
It's just a when. And, you have people who have been involved in these massive deals. So this is a lot of money, and, it's unprecedented for the NFL. So I think it's one of those things that are just going to take time. And for anybody who's worried, it's just, Denver took 2 months start to finish. This is a more difficult process than Denver because of the numbers involved. So,
and the people involved, it's a higher dollar amount, and you got more partners. Denver also added partners after the fact, where these guys have done a lot of that prior. $6 billion financial transaction that is going to be complicated.
So let's switch to the field because that's what people still want to hear about most because, again, at some point Harris comes in, we're going to do all this stuff on the field. OTA's first day today. We're going to be out there tomorrow. No Chase Young, no Montez Sweat. Charles Leno not there either, but Sweat and Young are the two big names for that. They haven't been there in a few weeks. Any surprise? Is it a big deal? It's voluntary. Is it a big deal?
Scale of 1 to 10. If 10 is a big deal, I think it's a 5, maybe a 6. It's not nothing. If I was Chase Young, my focus would be, all right, now I'm going into my walk year. I'm going to do everything possible to get paid a life-changing amount of money as a free agent. And if we learn that he likes working out with this guy in Denver, right? Maybe that's where he is. But if there's something else, I'm not sure it's the absolute best step. To me, with Chase specifically, each step in this process with the team not picking up the option, how long it took to get back from the injury, all these things. And there's no allegation of anybody doing anything inappropriate or dishonest or anything. It's just, it feels like we are one step closer to Chase not being here. And I almost wonder if that could happen before the end of it. Like it feels like it gets accelerated every time. You and I talked about this. I think from a straight football perspective, now we may get there tomorrow and Ron says all 3 were excused. Their nieces were graduating from high school, whatever it may be. But Leno has a new offense, new coordinator, new quarterback. I feel like Leno could actually use the work as much as any of these guys can use the work in May. There's plenty of work to come. I don't really think any of it's a concern.
Right.
For Chase, there's this weird mix of, I think some fans feel like he gets scapegoated for everything. And I wonder if Chase feels that way. And I feel like there's some truth to that. But then not every time, but oftentimes where it seems like there's an opportunity to do something that you wouldn't get negative press for, you don't do it.
Right. And I think the hard part for him, again, it's you always have to stress that it is voluntary.
Totally.
And as long as he and Sweat are working out, I'm sure Leno is doing his own thing. He's doing whatever he's doing. He's working out as well. So you don't have to be there to work out. And I think defensively, they don't have as much to put in. That's one of the benefits for those two, that if you stay away, it doesn't necessarily kill you, right? And so if you come
especially at that position,
right?
If you were a corner and they just drafted 2 corners and, there was some change at position coaches inside, like maybe Chase Young and Montez Sweat have one primary function and we all know what it is. And that's not to say they shouldn't be freelancing and all these other things, but like their job's to get to the quarterback. And they knew that when they were drafted. They'll know that week 1. But still, it's also interesting that we're all fairly dismissive of Sweat not going. He's going into a walk year. I think you could argue that he's certainly never delivered on the promise of the excitement and the athletic profile. He's had good seasons, good pass rusher. He's good against the run, but he's never close to like a Pro Bowl or something. Right. He's a first-round player.
Right. And I think he's the one, too, that when you hear the extension talk, his name gets mentioned a decent amount as far as a guy that they would like to extend. Sure. So I think from that standpoint, but again, if you come in and you produce, nobody remembers this. I think the hard part for Chase is that he had, the last couple of years, it hasn't gone the way he or anybody else wanted, even before the injury. And the coach is included in that too. So that's where, and I also think like, if you want to consider yourself a team leader, you should be there.
Yeah.
But, maybe he doesn't, and that's okay. But as long as you come into shape and you produce, there you go.
It is interesting though, because he's just not graded on the same curve. Last year, Terry didn't come.
Right.
Terry was going into the final year of his contract, wanted a new deal and didn't come. And by and large, fans understood it and supported it because Terry's produced on the field and been a leader. I even think John, go back 2 years ago, did he come to OTAs?
I think there were a couple that he made.
I think, but like it was the same situation. He was going into a free agent year, wanted a new contract. Like if you zoom out or if you eliminate the name, like if apparently he is, but if Cam Curl wasn't there, we'd all be like, yeah, he wants a new contract. Like,
right.
Because it's Chase and because of the underperformance before the injury and then the injury on top of it, everything just gets
it's
great.
He's number 2 pick. He's going to be magnified, and that's who he is. He's everything with Chase is a big deal,
totally,
one way or another. And again, if you come in and produce, then nobody remembers it. And that's, you always have to stress that. And I do think that because the defense, again, they know this D. It's the same system now for 4 years. The cover, they don't have to worry about the coverages. That's
Even
not
most
the
of
thing.
the D-line guys are the same.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I guess you lose Holcomb, but like of the
Still.
front seven, it's largely
Right,
intact.
Right. And again, they are working out.
Right.
And so and these are volunteer. I think the bigger story to me would be if you don't come for the mandatory minicamp. And I don't know why they wouldn't.
Oh yeah.
I think that's a much
that
different
approach is
story.
something very different. And the new CBA makes it pretty expensive, I guess,
Yes.
to hold out. Because when you miss mandatory stuff, it becomes a holdout. You're not in a voluntary practice, and that's your right.
Did you know the largest ropes course and zip line park in the country is right here in the DMV? Located in the heart of Montgomery County, the Adventure Park at Sandy Spring combines climbing and zip lining to create an aerial obstacle course unlike any other. With challenges anywhere from 10 to 75 feet in the air, there is something for all skill levels. Looking for some family time or the perfect date night before football season starts? You can even climb and zip line under the stars. Would you rather keep your feet on the ground? Give axe throwing a try. With their projector systems, you can throw at traditional targets, play tic-tac-toe, connect four, or even hunt zombies. Listeners of this show can get $5 off any ticket by entering the code KEIM23DC at checkout. That's KEIM, KEIM 23DC. So there you have it, folks. Climbing, ziplining, axes, food, and bonfires right in your backyard. The weather is warming up, so it's the perfect time to head outside and join the adventure at www.theadventurepark.com. That's www.theadventurepark.com and enter promo code KEIM23DC. The other thing, going back, and this is kind of on the field because it involves the field, but the stadium. One of the things Goodell did talk about, and he said that he's talked to the mayor of DC, he's talked to representatives from each locale. As we stand here now, do you have a sense of like how would you handicap the stadium pursuit?
Dude, one of the reasons I wanted to ask Roger that is just to like not get the same, we're working on it answer to the D. I just wanted something different. Handicap stadium pursuit. I think the easiest path is Maryland. They are already there. And people always act like that's not a part of this. Like nobody has to approve a new stadium because they have a stadium there. The state's willing to give them money. PG County's willing to give them money. Like I recognize that's not an ideal result for a lot of people, but I do think it might be the easiest. I think RFK is the most preferred, and there's real momentum between the mayor and the city council, but there's a lot of hurdles, feds, city, neighborhood, which I think people kind of sleep on. I think Poplar Point across from Nats Park would be a real possibility. I think there's never been a massive development project east of the river like this could present. And I think politically it might be easier to sell that. Like, listen, we're going to invest all this money in an area that doesn't right. And then Virginia, I think if you could get a stadium in Arlington or Alexandria or something, it'd be awesome. I just don't think you can.
I don't think there's any way that would.
The land's too expensive, all of it. And I think Loudon, I'm not saying this should be the response, but I think from a lot of fans, you're 30 miles outside of the city. It's a different vibe. I think this staff the new owners are smart enough to not even consider Prince William and the 95 corridor.
Yeah, that one's out.
I think RFK at like 4-1, 5-1, maybe. Maryland at like 7 or 8. Poplar Point at like 13, 14-1, something like that. Maybe National Harbor's still a possibility, but I think the practice facility will absolutely always remain in Virginia.
It'll stay in Virginia,
but I don't think they're going to build a stadium there.
Yeah, and the other thing, the Poplar Point one is
that Phillips.
The Poplar Point one is a viable option. There are some issues with it, just like with RFK. It's size of the land, how much land is there. There's also some environmental issues.
Deviation, because the Snyder Group looked at that, and I would think we've all kind of reported that. And I think it's an issue with RFK too. Somebody told me at RFK, I went and did a tour, that they have like serious EPA restrictions because you're on the river. That's why they're not just blowing that thing up.
Right.
They're taking it apart like screw by screw. And that just drives your construction costs through the roof.
Right.
So you could do it.
And I think that's the same. There'll be some of the same issues over at Poplar
Yeah,
Point, which
for
is
sure.
why, while it'd be great to be down there, it's not as easy or a slam dunk as people would want it to be. So, Virginia, we'll see. I think, man, it'd be closer for me.
Would Dumfries be closer?
Not Dumfries. Dumfries is out.
Loud.
Yeah, Loudon would be.
Yeah.
Loudon would be. But the only thing is, even from a selfish standpoint, they're still going to have the practice facility in Virginia.
Where you're going.
Nothing
every day,
changes
right.
for me if you have to go over to FedEx. So that part doesn't.
Loudon's easier for me than Landover for sure. Maybe Loudon is a more realistic option than we all think. I just think they want to be in the city so bad. Like, I think at least right now where they'll have so much momentum behind the new sale and the city. I mean, the mayor, and we had Councilman McDuffie on the radio. Like, they've come out and said, hey, they changed the name, new owner. We can really push for this now. But, we've lived in DC a long time. It doesn't always work.
Last thing, when we get back, we can watch the OTAs. What are you looking forward to most seeing?
I mean, it's an obvious one, but a towel. Just the growth. I thought he showed so much growth from the preseason finale
Agreed.
to the regular season finale. Now he's had another off season and more. It's not gonna be a live pass rush. Nobody's wearing pads. Like, you don't want to try to take too much from it, but it's more just a command of the offense, of the structure, of the huddle, all of those things. I thought he actually looked pretty. I think you can argue that last year's training camp, and I think we talked about this last year, but like compared to expectations at that point, I thought he might have had, because Taylor had a kind of bad camp. Carson had a bad camp. I thought Howell was the most impressive compared to what you were expecting last year.
And I want to emphasize, because somebody asked me this one time, they had this conspiracy theory, like he did not look the best of those three.
No, but you were expecting nothing and you saw something.
Right. And what I liked about him
Taylor probably looked the best.
at times, yeah, it's certainly,
I don't know.
it's a tough debate. It's a really, but I do think like he made a great deal of strides from start to finish the camp. That's why I felt he had an impressive camp, because his improvement was he had more room to improve, and he did. So anyway, that's it, JP. Appreciate you joining me.
Happy to, man.
There you go.
Thank you,
From Minnesota. And thanks for watching, for tuning in. And again, I'll talk to you after the Wednesday OTA practice. So I'll talk to you next time.